when we can build a business that serves our soul first, and every day we show up because it makes me a better, every day this business makes me a better person. Your
Oh,
business, Allison's business, makes Allison a better Allison.
that's so good.
Why do we make money? Because that's our goal, is to be better people.
Yes.
The money
Yes.
just comes by a function of the value you provide to the world,
Yes.
you know?
Oh,
And
yes.
when you start with that as your goal, you cannot fail.
I love that. That is so good. Hey, guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Allison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. My guest today is Rodric Lenhart, and he is a Michigan-born lifelong entrepreneur. He's a multi-number-one best-selling author and sought-after speaker. He started his business journey, which I find fascinating, at such a very young age. He's one of those guys who right out of the crib was looking for ways to hustle and make money. It was just in his blood, which I find fascinating. Over the last 30 years, he has expanded his ventures to create multiple multi-million-dollar companies in both product and service industries. Having traveled to more than 50 countries across 6 continents, Rodric brings a unique worldview and a deep appreciation for freedom and autonomy to his work. Donating all profits to his foundation, Send a Student Leader Abroad in partnership with EF Tours. His goal is to send 1 million kids on a life-changing trip, which I love that. What I'm really excited about with Rodric is that we're going to learn his way of, he's able to tell us and share with us how you can just lose it all. You know, once you've learned how to create success and you've developed that within you, you kind of have this muscle memory, this cell memory that will help you to again do that. But he has some really, really good information that I think will really help entrepreneurs and anyone who's seeking to have a vibrant life. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Rodric on and we will chat away. Hey, guys, how are you today? As I told you, I have Rodric right here with me to share so many incredible insights. And for me, I just want to pre-frame it to you guys. Something very special about Rodric is that, you know, how many different entrepreneurs have been on here, people who have great success, people who have had success in mental health, people who've had success financially, but we have a kind of little twist, or a large twist, I think, with Rodric, in that Rodric has gotten to a point in his life where in his entrepreneurial life and personal life, where he is now giving all of the proceeds of his work to charity. And we're going to talk more about that. But to me, it almost brings a tear to my eye, because if you really think about it, what is ultimate success? And it's like, how can I best be of service? Like, to me, it's to God and man today. Like, it's giving, you know, and growing, right? That's like life. So to me, that's the real arrival. You know, it's not like somebody who's like a multi-billionaire. That's great. But this is like the turn that I mean, I know I want to make. I want to wake up in the morning and just give everything away. And so that I just, you know, I want to honor you for that and thank you that you're doing that. And any way that any of us can support that, I want to do that for you, or, you know, with you. So I just want to welcome you, Rodric, to this show and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. This is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. So for the beginning, I just would love for you to tell everybody about as you were a little boy and how you became that entrepreneurial spirit. And before I'm going to ask like a second part to that question, because I I see that in certain people, and I'm an entrepreneur, right? For 31 years, I've had this business, right? But when I was little, I didn't have that like, oh, how do I go? I'm just curious, just as a therapist, I want to like dig into your brain, like, were your I'm gonna make a joke. Don't take it serious. Were your parents not feeding you? Did you like, oh shit, I gotta take care of myself fast? Sometimes there's other backstories underneath it. I know I grew up a little bit neglected, so I was always very independent, always looking for ways. My direction was to make people happy. That would be a success for me. And, I'm just curious about that for you.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again for having me on. And I love the hard-hitting questions to start off
We're
the
going right
start
out
off
the
the
gate.
show.
Yeah.
It started, I don't want to make it sound like, I grew up dirt poor or anything, but it does come from a little bit of necessity where I knew that if I wanted a bike or I wanted to buy a Nintendo or I wanted, cool new pair of shoes for school, mom and dad weren't buying that. Like we just did not have the money. And so I was that kid that was like, all right, I'm down at the golf course, hustling up golf balls and selling them back to the golfers and, figuring out if I could sell fruits and vegetables from the garden out by the street and, just what can I do as a young kid to be able to buy a pizza or to be able to buy some candy, just kid stuff that you think about. And you look back now and you think about how many people are scared to death to speak in public? How many people are scared to death to go up and ask for a sale? And when you're 6 years old and you're like, "Sir, would you like to buy my golf balls?" You're just talking to complete strangers, you're learning lifelong lessons at that age. And I just figured out really early that inputs equal outputs and that the harder I worked and the harder I hustled, the more I could make. And I wasn't capped by that. And by the time I graduated high school, I'd already had a couple small businesses. I went to UT for entrepreneurship, family, and small business. I was first graduate from that program at UT, and I was already running two relatively large companies at that point. And listening to well-meaning professors who had never owned anything tell me about what the business world was going to be like.
Can you
And
just tell us what were those businesses? I'm just curious.
so the two big ones that I had when I was through college was I had developed a performance automotive part for the fourth generation Volkswagen. Like it was just a very specific thing. And I was importing T6061 aluminum from a guy named Helmut Tang out of China to my mom's garage because I still lived at home. And I was putting these kits together and selling them all over the world. I mean, I sold them to like 50 different countries and taught myself HTML, taught myself how to set up a checkout page, all the things that are just common knowledge now, or you have a program to do. So I did that was one side of it. And then the other side was called the Cable Shack. And I was wholesaling home theater and car audio equipment and primarily through eBay, but I had my own website, et cetera. And this was I've been on eBay since 99. So I was part of the PayPal IPO, like before people knew what PayPal was,
But
So
like,
the wild west of the internet.
how does somebody get like that? How did you do like when you say that to me, like were you fascinated with cars? Like you developed a product for the Volkswagen. You've
I'm
got
still
to talk to
fascinated with
Tony
cars.
Watley. What'd
I've
you
had
say?
I said I'm still fascinated with cars. I've had 60 plus cars. And
Yeah,
when I'm off of this call, before my next call, I will go
yeah.
work on the hot rods in the shop just
That
over
is
there.
so cool.
Now
Love it.
now I build cars from the ground up, but that's
You
just
have
my
to meet
hobby.
Tony Watley.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a must. I'm going to make sure you connect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So that was kind of my entrepreneurial journey. I mean, it really was always figuring out a way not to have a job. And it didn't mean I worked like you hear the cliche about entrepreneurs. We're the ones that work 100 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week,
This is so funny. Yeah.
but I am that guy. Like I work my behind off, but when I want to go take a drive on the Blue Ridge tomorrow for the day, I'm going to, and I'll cancel all my appointments. Like I want freedom and autonomy are my top two values. Money's there, but it's not number one. And defining success, I think, is what is really important for people. And I went wrong, for space from like 24 to 27 that almost killed me. And we can talk about that. But,
Can you tell us?
you
Because
know,
I've done that too.
yeah. And you being a therapist, I mean, I'm sure you hear these things, but I took a job. That's the bad word of the day, is job, job. And I was selling new homes for a Fortune 100 builder in Charleston. And I was 24, and I was slowly shutting down those same two companies because I had more money coming in than I knew what to do with. I just had to sit in a model home and sell people. That's easy peasy. I could do that all day long. So I'm number one in the company. I'm going on sales trips to the CEO's house in Santa Barbara. I mean, I can buy and go and do anything I want. And I'm miserable. I wake up every day with that sinking, is this all there is feeling. I ultimately become very depressed and suicidal at times,
Mm.
and could not figure out why. And I've been a student of life for as long as I can remember. I mean, I was that kid listening to Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer and Deepak on my rollerblades while everybody else is going to the movies. I'm like a nerd like that, right? But I couldn't figure it out for myself, and ended up quitting the job and dove into all the books I had read up to that point. And I needed a system to make sure that never happened again. Because as far as I knew, I was making the right moves. And I call it right map, wrong mountain. And how many people do we know that are given this map by society, by their parents, by their partner, by their pastor, whoever it is, and they follow all the steps and they get to the top of the mountain and they were on the wrong mountain the whole time.
Yeah. Right.
And that was me at 24, 25, 26 years old.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I had a job. I went back, I started a construction company at that point. But,
You know
when
how
you
bad
look
I
at it,
want to, you know how bad I want to like dive into that well for a moment? Can I? Just for a second?
yeah, I'm in your hands, Alice.
All right. I'll be kind, I promise. So basically, I think it's important. We hear these stories. We all have a lot of these different types of experiences, but this experience where you get to that point where you have everything, but you have nothing, right? Wrong mountain. You know, how did you, I always think that it's because we're looking for external solutions to an internal need or problem, getting a legitimate need met in an illegitimate, not necessarily illegitimate way, but not the way necessary for us, right? So what was it that, like, did you dive into like your own heart, like to understand yourself? Because we look at all, like I do all that too, and I have forever, like, all the Wayne Dyer, like everybody, all the greats. And it satisfies and you learn, but then if you don't answer that thing inside, like if you don't know it or find that wise observer or fix what's blocked, like it's just nothing can really fully satisfy until the next thing. So I'm wondering, was that what it was? Like, where did you go to get better? I don't mean outside. Did you go in?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's ultimately why I wrote the book, the waves method that is at the center of $1 Million Flip Flops, and why I chose to write that book, not knowing if one person or 100,000 people would buy it,
Could you
was
describe, it's called the waves method?
yeah. So it is what I created when I went
Uh-huh.
inside and did the
Uh-huh.
work
Yes.
after, reading through all of these books, and they all have their own system, right? And I was just trying to find out what needed to work for me so that I never found myself in that place again.
I love that you
And
call it system.
and that's what
Yeah,
really
you're
what it
right. It
is.
is. Yeah.
The waves method at the end of the day is it's a decision making filter, and it's your why, it's authenticity, values, exploration, and your statement of purpose. And if you look back on that time when I was so disconnected from who I truly am as a person, why was I depressed? Why was I anxious? Why no amount of money would have fulfilled me at that point? Why? Because if you look at my top values of freedom, autonomy, I don't sitting in a model home for 40 hours a week is never, doesn't matter. I could make $12 billion. I'm going to be miserable
Yes.
because I need to be free. I need to be able to do what success to me is wearing flip flops every day and not waking up to I haven't set an alarm in 15 years. That's success to me. I wake up with the sun,
Yes.
and that doesn't, if I have $12 in the bank, that's still success to me.
Yeah.
And I think where we go wrong is that, and people are surprised, out of my clients, I coach small business owners, and 90% of them have no interest in more top line revenue. They want their time back. They want to be able to go to their kids' t-ball game. They want to not take a call from a shitty client on a Sunday when they're at the dinner table. Those are the things that they want to fix. And what I built for myself, it wasn't called the waves method then. It was just Rodric's decision making filter.
Yes. Yes.
It's, this decision is in front of me. Should I take this job? Should I marry this person? Should I join this sports league? It can go from massive decisions to very trivial things. But if it doesn't line up with my why, why do I get up every day other than a paycheck? And when I'm working with people, I say it can't involve money, power, or notoriety. Now tell me why you get up every day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't line up with my values. If it makes it through those two things, and then ultimately my statement of purpose. And I like to say small business owners that come to me, 99 to 100% have a mission statement for their business, right? You're taught to have a mission statement. Ask them what their mission for their life is.
Yeah.
They rarely have an answer. And so how do you know if the business you're building is going to turn you into the person you want to become? You don't until you put these pieces together. So that's what the waves method is. That's why I wrote the book. And again, I didn't know if one person bought it and it changed their trajectory and they didn't find themselves in that place that I was in, mission accomplished.
It's a very, this is very important. And I always find that when I do a podcast, somehow either I'm being prepared for it or they're my answer or something. They're going to help me with. God's just giving me people to help me. That's has nothing to do with the audience. But
when the teacher is ready,
yes.
When the student's ready, the teacher appears. Right?
Yeah, or the suffering comes back or whatever. But it's so interesting because this morning when I was, waking up, and I'm very intentional about the way I wake up. So I'll say, today I get to choose how I feel, and today I choose, and I've been asking myself repeatedly, I've done it a million times, and this is, believe me, a question I'm going to ask you. But the thing that is coming up is who do you want to be? That's why that question really stood out to me that we were speaking about. Who do you want to be? But what do you want? Because I've answered that question probably 1,000 times and thinking I knew. And then suddenly waking up, I've been in my business for 31 years, it's successful, whatever. But then to really go back and say, who are you now? What do you really want? How come you're feeling frustrated often when you used to be so happy? And then you say mission statement, my mission statement was always, not always, but it's been, I just want to be a person who adds value wherever I go. If it's the cashier, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where head, heart, feet, wherever I am, that's what I want to be. And it'd be great to be able to move all over the place with money so I could do that and just do that as much as I could. Is that along the lines of what you're talking about? How do you help someone who's lived a life? And there's a lot of people, I believe, living a whole life, like you said, but probably longer than you. I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day that's a CPA, and he's like, I'm just doing this because, and I work at this place because of the way it sounds, so then to reevaluate, what is the purpose, right? So I want to hear everything you have to say about it because I need your help, basically.
For whatever reason,
was there a question that I asked?
When you were talking about the CPA, what came to my mind was on his gravestone, it says, I liked the way the title sounded.
Yes.
Yes. What a life, what a life.
That's painful.
I was just on a show before I came over to you, and she asked, I've been around the world twice, and I did both of those trips while I was still running companies. And people are like, how'd you do that? And it's like, I did it. Yeah. And you can too, if it's a priority for you. And the only way that stuff's hard, change is hard. The only way you make it through is to know reasonably well what's on the other side of it. And until you do that inner work, and that's what you do, that's what the waves method does. I like to say, certainly with small businesses, you sell them what they think they need, and then you give them what they actually need. They think they need more leads. They think they need help with systems in their business. What they really need is to understand why they're fricking doing it in the first place, because
Yes.
everything else gets easier. The challenges are not insurmountable anymore because there's a huge purpose on the other side of it.
Mm.
And if the only purpose is so that I can maintain the title of this cool place I work at, that's
Mhm.
not enough,
No, no.
and
Yeah.
it's it's a cliche thing where people say, "Oh, follow your passion." And I always say, follow your passion and then take a class in sales and marketing. But
It's just,
so the people actually know what it is you do. But it's so true. The idea that one of the last things my mom gave me before she passed was this necklace, and it says, "Enjoy the journey." And I never take it off.
oh,
And it's a similar thing that I coached baseball for a long time. I don't have my own kids, but I coached a really competitive team in Charlotte, and had kids go to the pros, the whole works. And I would tell them the first game of every season, it's the same thing I tell grown ass adults now. Whether you win, whether you lose, sometimes the other team's just better. Sometimes you're just having a bad day. Like, you're not going to remember the score of this game in 20 years, but who you become is what you get to keep. So you give your
beautiful.
all at every practice. You give your all at every game, not because you're going to win, but because of the person you get to be on the other side of that effort.
Yeah.
And when we can build a business that serves our soul first, and every day we show up because it makes me a better, every day this business makes me a better person. Your
Always.
business, Allison's business, makes Allison a better Allison.
Yes, it's so good. Yes.
And when you come at it from that frame and not just, and why do we make money? Because that's our goal, is to be better people.
Yes.
The money
Yes.
just comes by a function of the value you provide to the world,
Yes.
you know?
Totally.
And
Yes.
when you start with that as your goal, you cannot fail.
I love that. That is so good. I'm going to ask you practical questions too. It's just, but also like, as you're growing a business, let's say, or even if somebody isn't growing a business, but they stumble into, they make mistakes. Like you're talking about, change. Like I feel like change is growth, right? So it's like, so many times are in that dark place where you've maybe made mistakes, or everything's like, it's so busy, you don't know what you're doing, or that I feel like in those moments, I have to like dig in and say, I know I'm growing here. Sometimes you can't see, but like you hold on to that. Some part of me is being developed in this. I just have to find it, like what is this development? Because it's so easy to give up hope
Mm.
when you're in that situation. I love what you're saying. It's the way that you're saying it. It's different. We've heard so many different things, right? And the different things we've read, but the way you're saying it, it's like sometimes our soul is just thirsty. We're not even aligned at all. How do you do that? And I do travel also, even though I have businesses, because it's intentional.
Mhm.
Is that how, let me hear, I want to hear more of your wisdom. It's so good. It's refreshing.
The long before I became a coach,
Mhm.
and you help people along the way, because invariably you're asked, Allison, how do you do it? How are you traveling and you have all these practices? Because it's a priority for me.
Yep.
It's, I'm never going to build a business where I have to be at a desk all day. I'm never going to build a business that doesn't allow me to be in Thailand tomorrow if I want to be. So it's designing it with intention, not just letting it happen. And I came out of the building and real estate and development world. So my primary audience is usually custom home builders. Like, that's who I'll resonate with, even though my clients are musicians and closing coordinators and accountants, doesn't matter. The principles still work. But that is a good example of a business that it just keeps getting bigger, and they're just holding on the whole time. And I have these calls all day long. I was
When you
just
say
on one this
holding
week.
on, you mean like it's growing out from under them, or you mean
Yeah.
in a successful way?
In a successful way. It's a
Oh yeah.
successful
Mhm.
business, but they lose their time. I want to share this with you because it was really powerful. I was speaking at an event in Austin like 2 weeks ago. And one of the other guys that was speaking, he said, I walked in the door and my kid was sitting there waiting for me. He'd been waiting for me all day to get home. And I gave him the finger. And he goes, and it wasn't this finger. It was this one.
Ah,
Hold on. You're not important right now. I've got to talk to this client, and I'll never forget that. And how true is that for so many of us? It's building a business with intention. And if you look at like, I don't know if this will ever be on video, but like a triangle model of what somebody's business
yes,
should look like.
yes.
And it's it's why we talk about the perfect year. It's 3 years from now. What does Monday through Sunday look like for you?
Mhm.
What time do you get up? When do you work out? What are the meals with your family? How many weeks of vacation are we taking? If you have no idea what that looks like, you're never going to build something that even closely resembles that. And you're going to live the same year 80 times and call it a life.
100%. It's so true. I love that, give them the finger, right? That's a much worse finger, I think. I think I've done that to my employees, at different times. I like to have good relationships with them, but I think I've done that. I have 4 kids too. I've done that to them, but now that they're older, I don't do it as much. They do it to me. But I'm just, well, kind of kidding. But with my employees, I realize I'd love to hear your wisdom on this. Like, as a business grows out from under you're racing to grow as fast as it's growing, and you can't, because like, well, you can eventually, but it's like having to get people in place who are going to be able to do so. Like, it makes you so busy at times that you're like, thin, and doing that to everyone, which, hurts culture. There's so much that it hurts, so just like in a family too, when you're
Mhm.
just, there's not enough of you to go around. I'd be curious. I mean, obviously you have to build, a better leadership team and all that practical stuff, but I'm just curious to know what you would say about that. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book, and then I realized, how is that right, to keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage, and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity, or a life of poor design, because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah.
That your
I mean,
business
I
got
mean,
bigger than you?
it happens to all of us,
Yeah.
and I think it comes back to understanding what your definition of success is. And I say that a lot because you watch businesses that grow and grow and grow and grow, and certainly ones in which the top line revenue is growing, but they're not more profitable. We see that a lot of the time.
Yeah, that could, I'm sure.
Certainly with builders, and it makes me think of the CPA you were talking about that was at the place for the title. Most, I'll use building as the example, but you build custom homes because now you're a custom home builder, and that's got some swag and some street cred,
Mhm.
and ooh, I'm building these $2
Yeah,
million houses. But you could knock out a bunch of kitchens and baths and probably be more profitable and have a lot less stress and not be tied to somebody for 3 years. And there's a lot of reasons not to build big custom houses. And that applies to, take that analogy and apply it
yeah,
to whatever business you're
yeah.
in,
It's true.
you know, and understanding what is the end goal. The end goal for me is not $100 million. Like I
Yeah.
am not willing to make the sacrifices it would take to reach that level of monetary success.
Yes.
I have no desire to do it, and
Hmm.
I will never do it. you know,
Yeah, love that.
because I'm not going to work that hard at it. I want to be able to go mess with the hot rods. I want to be able to
Yeah.
I'm just not interested. And I
Yes.
think when you sit down and really think about what success looks like to you, and maybe that's 6 weeks of vacation with your family. Maybe that's taking every 4th week of the month off. Maybe there's society's definition of what it should be influences what you think it should be. And then you find yourself just working yourself to the bone for an imaginary number that could be gone tomorrow to buy
Yeah.
a bunch of crap that you don't even need to impress people you don't even like. We
Yeah.
hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but how many
Hmm.
people live their life that way? It's what do I want my life to look? In entrepreneurs, the reason I'm an entrepreneur, but the reason I work with entrepreneurs now is because we are uniquely qualified to change our circumstances immediately. If you're in a corporate job and you've got a 30-year career as an accountant, maybe you can't go be an astronaut tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
But an entrepreneur can talk to the CEO in his underwear right now and
Right.
say, I'm going to make this change tomorrow,
Yeah.
and here's where we're going now.
Yeah.
You own the thing. You have no excuses. It's the blessing and the curse of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. What would you say about when you have employees and kind of like fostering that in them, which then impacts the business. So like let's say that maybe they would love to with what I do here, let's say they would love to go every 6 weeks, go somewhere. And you value that, right? I value it too. So let's say that's important to them, but it does impact, let's say, the clients, or, I'm just curious as as someone who's the owner, so you're in that role where you kind of have to keep it's not just the revenue, it's the culture and the client's good. So I was just curious because I would love to give that to them as well, right?
When we have teams, and typically I work with people with under 5 employees. Like I'm not your guy if you've got 100 people underneath you. Like it's just not my jam. But the same thing that you do with the waves method, you can do with your current employees and you can do with prospective hires. And
Yeah.
in the book, I liken it to the 5 love languages. How important are those in a relationship? If you like acts of service and I just keep bringing you gifts,
This
you're
is so
never going to
true.
love me more. And it's the same thing in your business.
Yeah,
There's people
so
that
true.
they love routine, and they only want 2 weeks of vacation because showing up every day is what fulfills them, and
Yes,
those are the people you
right.
put in those roles.
Yeah.
And but until it's all I mean, how many thousands of business books, it's the right seat on the right bus
Oh
going the
my
right
gosh.
direction.
Yes.
you know so those
Yes.
things exist, and they don't always have to jive with what your vision of success is. It's just putting the right people in the right roles and fulfilling their vision of success. And then most people aren't having those conversations with their
Yeah.
employees. I was talking with a guy the other day, and he's like, I share with my secretary or my VA, all of our profit numbers and everything. And he's like, why? Well, because now she understands that this is a business and she understands which direction we're going. And it starts to put context around everything instead of
Mm-hmm.
keeping people in their little silos, you know?
Yeah. That's I try to do that, not maybe the exact numbers, but just be like transparent. But I think it makes people feel pressured sometimes because therapists are a different breed. I don't think they want to know.
No?
Honestly, they like don't care. They think that you're just being selfish, like you want money if you're talking about business. Like it doesn't like the two don't like jive together. I want to ask you something that I saw that you had written. It's about you went from a million to a zero and then back to a million. Like how does someone do that? Because I'm just thinking that it has something to do with what you've developed already and you can do it again. Is that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the summary. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those, when you try something, you don't fail. You either win or you learn.
Yeah.
And in that particular scenario, I took every nickel I was making and I bought houses and land and rentals. And then that crazy thing called 2008, 2009 happened.
Yes.
And, I still consider myself fortunate because I know people that aren't here anymore because they committed suicide. And it's those kind of things that kind of tattoo your life as you go along, and you think about those things when you build the next thing, and what is really important, why did that person tie so much of their identity to their stuff and to their money that it wasn't worth being here anymore for their family or for their kids or for, it's sad, but there's lessons to be learned there. And you're right, it was easier to bounce back because who I am is what I get to keep, right?
I love that.
And
Yes.
who it they there's a great analogy I saw, and it's probably old, but I just saw it as a meme the other day. But it was, if you took all the money in the world and you put it on planes and you spread it out evenly, within 10 years, all the same people would have the money again.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
just understanding how it works.
Yes. Yeah. What it's interesting. And when you have to, I know that at different times throughout my business, you can get afraid. And it's not even that anything physically is happening out here. It's just like fear gone wild. When you mentioned about somebody dying by suicide, you know, my husband died by suicide. So, oh no, I cry. But so I bring it up because it is like it's so important to not let fear go wild because all of these things aren't as important, and that's what you're saying is so valuable because, I have this question for you related to this is that what I see everywhere, when you say waves, like it's a principle that can be applied anywhere. And there's one principle that I feel like I apply. I try to get the other therapists to do it too. Like you like to have an internal locus of control, to be like when there's a problem. So everybody is tinkering out here to solve an internal thing that the only way it's going to be solved is to go inward. And like it's this hamster wheel of trying to fix what's out here. And these things feel so hurtful. But when you're not as attached to them because you can trust going inwards, you're going to take care of, even if it's scary inside, it's, what you have to do for you. Right. So I feel like it's that, like when your mind gets, like, oh, this is so bad, or this is, and then you start telling all these stories. My friend Kayla Steckline, she's not my friend, she was on my podcast. I feel like she's my friend, but she wrote the book Fear Gone Wild. And because her husband died by suicide. And that's what happens. Like you can literally, it's like a takeover of the mind if you allow it with these externals. Did it
Mhm.
feel like similar to that when you were 24, when you, you just felt like no hope?
Yeah, absolutely. I was that person this is my identity. This is who Roderick is. And through that experience, I learned not to care about that, at least not as much. I don't think you ever get rid of it, but the not caring what other people think. I think we're afraid of failing, not because of the failure. We're afraid of what people will say about us failing.
Yeah.
And when you start to eliminate that and realize that A, they don't matter. B, they're not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they're thinking about you.
Yeah.
What's the saying? You wouldn't care what people thought of you if you knew how little they did. Everyone's worried about
Exactly.
their own world, man. And and I think I'm going to tie this in with perspective, because fear gone wild is a lack of perspective, I think.
Yeah,
And the reason that we have the foundation, and I'm going to ask you this in the form of a question.
sure.
If every student in the world traveled to the other side of the globe and experienced 3 or 4 or 5 other cultures and then came back to their town, everyone in the world, how different would our world look?
Mm, yeah.
When
Tell
you
us.
s- when you see that travel teaches you, I've been to 60 countries on 6 continents. Travel teaches you empathy and compassion and gives you a sense of perspective that you can't get from a book, that you're not going to get in your town. You're certainly not going to get it in the United States of America. And it really, at the end of the day, teaches that there's no them, there's only us. You know, Everybody wants the same things you want. They want a warm meal and relative safety and a better life for their kids. And they're just like you, all eight, with rare exception, all 7, 8 billion of us. And when you learn those principles and you see that your worst day is still the best day for about 4 or 5 billion
Yes.
people on this
Yes.
earth, it doesn't seem so bad anymore, does it?
Yes. It's like paying attention to, yeah, to what's beautiful, right? Instead of like what's wrong. It's funny because not funny, haha, but I took my daughter on a trip, and it's not anything major, but we went to Portugal, right? So she had
Oh,
never been
Portugal.
out of the country. I love it there. It's like one of my favorite. I want to live there. I love it there so much. And she is a different person. That's one, we've traveled the United States, but this is like one place out of the country she's gone. And she's like, the air is different. Like I feel like she's like, my life, she's different. So, and could you tell us about, you want to give you want to send 1 million students,
Yeah.
you know, um, to travel. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's called Send a Student Leader Abroad, and we are partnered with EF Tours, which, if you're familiar with EF, they're a $7 billion company with 70,000 employees. They're
I
a
don't know
huge,
who they are. Sorry.
and the only reason I knew EF is because I was that kid in 7th grade who couldn't afford that trip, and remember bringing the flyer home and my mom and dad screaming about how they didn't have the money to send me. And that trip, mom won that argument and spent money she didn't have to send me. And that trip changed my trajectory, changed my life forever. And so that's what I want to be able to provide to kids who, they show the hustle, they show the grit, they show the determination, but it's just not in the cards that they're ever going to be able to do something like this. So we ultimately, I mean, if the kids raise $10, we pay for the rest of the trip. But the idea is that, if we can send 1 million kids abroad, in my lifetime, which is a huge goal, it's like a $4 billion goal. Like, so it is a monster goal.
Yes.
But that's why I get up every day. That's why I do what I do, because at the end of the day, sure, I get to help business owners in their business. All that money goes to the foundation. Then I get to help the kids. And it's this big cyclical thing of just being a useful human being.
I have to
So,
go back to that seventh grader because I can't help it. Therapist in me. So that is a beautiful story, because what seems like such a sad moment, this young man, you know, this yelling and all of that. And it reminds me of something my son said to me when I was yelling at 3 of my boys. And he said, he was like 8. He said, Mom, I know that you're not really yelling at us. I know that you're yelling at yourself.
some
And I was like,
introspection for an 8-year-old.
yeah. I was like, you know what? You're 100% right. And I thought of your parents in that moment when you said that. Now, why are they yelling? They're not, it's, I mean, I don't know if they're bad or good, whatever, but they probably wanted so badly and they knew they couldn't, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's my story. I'm telling about it, but
I mean,
I,
if you start going to the therapist side of it and you think about
yeah,
how many arguments, we grew up in a tiny house. I mean, the kitchen was 10 feet from my bedroom, and
yeah,
how many arguments I heard about money. Why, when the opportunity was presented to me to make a bunch of money and I'll be happy, why would I think that way?
of course.
You go back to 5-year-old me, like more
Yes,
money, less yelling. It's just
yes,
we're
yes,
until you figure out that's not the answer. And how many of us have that experience? There's a lot of us that have that experience. So
yes, yes. That's some of the most traumatic things I remember. Not all, but, my parents, one particular argument, it was over money. But you know what? I want to just point something out. I think it's very interesting that you just said. So 5 years, 5 years old, right outside the kitchen and them yelling, right? Now, I think about what you did in your life with that. Okay, so, and it's not just that this it's a great story, but it's how it went that extra step. So there's this quote that I love by Alvin Toffler, and it says, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write. It's those who cannot learn, unlearn, and learn again."
I
And
love that.
yeah, right? So you did that because you learned, you know, get all the way to that 24-year-old making all that money, right? And then the pain, but then you unlearned what all that meant. And that's what I feel like that is almost like the message I want people to hear. Like we can unlearn what we've learned that's hurting us so much and learn again, like this new way. And I keep thinking I'm doing that. And then there's another like major thing that I have to unlearn and do. Like, shit.
You mean
Like,
life? You
what
mean
the
life
fuck?
happens
Is
else?
this ever going to stop? What else do I have to unlearn? Yeah. So
There's a reason the subtitle of the book is Peace, Prosperity, and the Courage to Change Course in Life and Business.
I love that. I'm getting this book now. Okay, so I know I want to respect your time. Oh, we have like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
What else can I glam out of this guy? Okay. So basically, there's this other, I have a question that I've written down. I don't want to forget it. The alignment with self, we kind of touched on that, but how do you do the practical, like, so you don't have like a bunch of people working for you, like this poor schlep over here.
No,
It's just
by
like
design. By design.
by design. Yes. So now, one of the things I think about is that a decision is a power move, right? And it sets the trajectory. And that's what you're describing, being decisive about this, right? When you say this thing about aligning with yourself, knowing what you want, right? How do you help people, or how did you find what you want? Like, because I asked myself that question, and very often throughout my life, it's like a blank, or it's like, oh, I want that, but then there's these things that block it, whatever, social norms, it could be anything, right? How do you help people find to learn what they want? The funny question, right?
I mean, that's what great therapists and great coaches do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a coincidence that the best people in any industry don't just have a coach, they have a team of coaches.
yeah.
Sports, business, name it. Like
Hmm.
with very rare exception, do they not have somebody from the outside looking in?
Yeah,
And the example I always give is when I'm going through the waves method with a client and we're on values and they do it on their own first. If they're a mom or a dad, they will invariably put family as one of their top values. Why? Because they think they have to. Because if they don't put family as their top value, they're clearly a bad mom or dad. And come to find out, family doesn't even have to be in your top 10 for you to be a great mom or dad because you are living your authentic self. And it's once you go through it with them and you're like a toddler and you know this as well as anybody, why? Why? Why is family your top value? Why? And then you get to it's not.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and until it's impossible to do on your own. You can try and you can make a lot of progress. And what do we pay for with therapy or coaching or anything else? We pay for speed. We pay for knowledge and we pay for speed.
Mm.
You know, I'm going to get you there. I'm going to get you in 10 months where it would take you 10 years to
Yeah.
go, simply by function of being there listening.
Mm. I agree
It's a
with that.
very powerful thing to have somebody truly actively listening to what you're saying. And most of us don't have a lot of that in our life.
Yes. It's so important. And it's like, I always say, it's like, which we've heard, it takes two to tell the truth. And truth is like this, like when someone hears the truth, when you hear the truth, you get to that, like, that real why. It's so grounding. It's like they say that's like the highest vibration. Like, it's like incredible. I remember going through like a series of whys I would have in this group. Tell the therapist, go 7 layers deep. And then, just keep asking, right? And doing it for myself, right? Sorry, I just did do one time for myself because I was trying to like do this, create this habit or whatever. And it had to do with eating actually, but what I discovered, which I never thought was true, was my why was I needed to trust myself. Like it wasn't like, oh, look a certain way, all these external things that I thought it was. It was because for God's sakes, I just need to trust that when I say I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to actually do it. Or that is what really the confidence that comes. What do I really want? I just want to feel good, peaceful and confident. Like, okay, safe with my own self, right? Which
Mhm.
is, just like maybe that wouldn't be like the first answer, right? Like visual, what do you want? Like if I say to you, well, you know what you want. So many people don't know what they want. And it's so weird we're having this conversation because last night I was laying in bed and I was saying, okay, Allison, what do you want? And then I was intentionally saying, practice all different things in your mind for what you want. And don't worry about if you actually want that thing. Just play around with it. Do you think that's a good idea? I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. I mean,
how do you figure it out?
well, I think you have somebody that helps. I
Yes,
think that's
exactly.
the biggest tool, but I think I get up every morning and I read and I write and I meditate.
Yeah, me too.
And
Oh,
giving your mind that space that we don't give it anymore. You know, if you're on a subway or if you're have a 5-second break, you're on your phone.
yep.
You know,
I
you're
know.
doom scrolling. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think there's something to be said for letting your mind play and being a little bored from time to time and not just
Love
filling
that.
your head. And believe me, I'm audiobook while I'm doing everything else. I'm that guy too.
Yeah.
But giving your mind that space to just be creative.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So just in respect to your time, I think the conversation is fantastic. I appreciate so much everything that you've shared here. And just where would people find you? And I want to encourage everyone to get Rodric's book, which will be in the show notes, but he'll explain because of the value it will provide for you, obviously, and for the kids who will get to experience and change their lives, right? So
Yeah.
tell
So
us
I'm
about
I'm
you.
super easy to find at
Hmm.
$1 million flip flops on every channel and $1 million dollar flipflops.com. The book is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, wherever you get your books. The journal that accompanies the book just came out,
Oh, good.
and the audiobook just came out.
Good.
So all of those things are available, and 100% of the profits go to send a student leader abroad.
And do you want people to reach out for you for coaching, or is that something like you're too busy? You want to be able to go out in flip flops and you don't want
No, I mean, I
that?
work with a limited number of people at any given time, but I would encourage people if they're interested in that, just go to the website and see what all is available.
So thank you so very
Thank you,
much.
Allison. We could go on
Yes,
for hours.
we could. Is there anything that you feel that you would want to share with anybody who's just feeling discouraged, feel like they're not the person who could find themselves or succeed? What would you say to them?
I would, the thing I want to say is you are enough, but
Yeah.
what I want to share is it's a quote that's on my arm,
Mm.
and it's from Thoreau, and it's the cost of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that, because that was one of the things I have written down that I didn't want to look away from the podcast to see. And I wanted you to say that. Yes, it's so important.
You can think
Yeah.
about that every day, and I think you'll start to find yourself on the right track.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it is a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Allison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Allison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.